Well, John, first of all, thank you. And I have to say it's very encouraging that you're trying to do a dossier for the Eastern Mediterranean. Good luck with that. I'm trying to figure it out for the last 3.5 years. Well, having said that, I'm going to try to find optimistic notes around the region and keep it short so we would have time for dialogue, and I would be very much willing and happy to answer questions. Well, generally, it is, I was thinking this morning what we were thinking of the world after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the idea that history has ended and the world is getting to a great normality and we'll all live happily ever after. And now we are in a world infested with conflicts, and we have seen war returning even to Europe in the 21st century, from white to black. And of course, the Eastern Mediterranean and the Gulf region and Africa and the Middle East, as historically, it is really the place where many conflicts coexist, many antagonisms coexist. But can we find something positive on this region? I would mention 3 things. I would start with the Abraham Accords, which I think is a game changer. We have here somebody that's much more capable of talking about that than me, but being an observer sometimes gives you a very clear picture. I think that the Abraham Accords have changed completely the narrative, not just of the Middle East, but on the overall region. Israel is able and willing to cooperate with Arab countries and create a new reality on the ground. The second thing, which is smaller, but I have to say from my side of view, even a greater achievement, is the delimitation agreement between Israel and Lebanon. Because on this agreement, we see something quite unique. An agreement between 2 countries that yet again they do not recognize each other. And yet again, they find ways not only to resolve a long-standing issue, but also apply international law and international law of the sea on the resolution of this issue, which means accepting that the world is a rules-based society, and at the same time creating a great example for the Mediterranean and for the world on the contested issue of delimitation of sea zones. And if I'm allowed to mention a third great example, is the delimitation agreement between Greece and Egypt, something that was negotiated for something like 35 years. Because this delimitation, which I had the honor to sign with my dear friend Samek Sukri, is not just a bilateral agreement on delimitation of sea zones. Is a connecting lane between Africa and Europe, which could be used for interconnectors, for pipelines, and at the same time, again, it's a perfect example of how application of international law and international law of the sea creates the perfect example of how countries could resolve differences through dialogue, through application of international law, through acceptance of a rules-based order, and move forward and create stability and wealth and prosperity, not just for their own citizens, but for the citizens of a much larger area than that. I will stop here because I thought that the best thing I can do to raise your spirits is, in this very difficult time for the world, is at least underline 3 successes we had recently. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, Nicholas Dendias, any comment on what you've heard from the floor and a couple of additions? Yeah.
Well, my agenda is rather limited on the question asked me, to me, so that's which quite good, means not many, or at least not that many problems in my plate. Well, first of all, on the question asked by the Egyptian general, what I try to do is strike an optimist note in a very dark situation for the world. That's why I picked two successes. If I look at our failures or to the crises we're watching around, then the catalog will be endless, and I will be talking from morning to evening and start the next morning. Now, for our region, for example, I could name three. A, Syria. Syria is a failed state, and let me be honest, we don't have a policy to address the situation in Syria. And by we mean the Western world, the value-oriented society. We're just by-watchers. We do nothing. Libya. In Libya, we have something like two governments, 5 fractions, numerous militias, you name it, it's there. And Libya is asking us a disruptor in 2 ways. It signs illegal agreements with Turkey, creating potential problems, and with just saying problems, I understate what may happen with Greece, and at the same time spreads weapons to the Sahel, and in the Sahel we see a situation which goes beyond control. And we have a very few thousand French, with the help of the United States and small help of a few others, who try to control an area which is 2 times the size of the United States. And of course, I was in the Niger just a few days ago, and please let me tell you, we are failing in the Sahel. And last but not least, Turkey. Turkey acts as a disruptor. Turkey does not accept international law, does not accept international law of the sea, is a NATO member country, does not impose any sanction of Russia. If you look at the Turkish budget this year, you will see 30 added billions. This is the profits of Turkey because of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, and Turkey not imposing any sanctions on Russia, and 800 Russian companies relocating to Turkey. So there are many, many problems. But what I tried to show is that problems are resolvable. It is not something that we cannot address. If we have rules, if we have a rules-based order, and if we have goodwill, all the problems we are facing today, or at least most of them, are addressable. And we should not resign from the hope that we can create a better world. We should not allow despair to cover our region. And on the second question asked to me, what I'm afraid of, I'll tell you clearly, is A, lose of hope. I said it before. Stop trying. Resign from creating a better world. And B, allow the revisionist narrative to prevail, to become over dominant. That is why I hope that Ukraine will be successful, because it is not just a victory for Ukraine as a country against an aggressor. Greece has nothing against Russia. It is defeat of the revisionist narrative. If the Russian invasion of Ukraine was successful, what do you think would stop President Erdogan imitating it? Or what would stop other authoritarian rulers imitating the example? So, I will again finish with a positive remark. We can create a better humanity. We have all the resources to address the challenges, including, by the way, climate change, which affects this region. But we have to believe in it and try hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hale, thank you very much. Foreign Minister.
Yes, well, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. First of all, on the issue that has to do with Ukraine and with the Saudi Kingdom. Well, we Greece see ourselves as an entry point towards the Balkans, towards Central Europe, and towards supporting the Ukrainian effort. We have a port in northeastern Greece, Alexandroupolis, which is the main port now used by NATO to support Ukraine. But also we see ourselves as energy hubs. We can transfer energy from the Arab world, from Africa towards Europe. And there's a lot of infrastructure, of pipelines, of interconnectors that are being developed as we speak to address the challenge that Europe faces on energy, especially the Balkans and Central and Eastern Europe. And on the other hand, on the cultural level, on the level of identity, I think we are well qualified because of our geographical position and of our history to understand the Arab world better and become the interlocutors between the Arab world and the European Union. We are at a cultural crosspoint, and we could be extremely useful on that. And I have to say we're watching with great interest the reform of the Saudi Kingdom, the reform effort. On the issue of where Turkey fits within the architecture of the region, well, for us, this is clear. Eventually, Turkey will have to fit in the security architecture of Eastern Mediterranean. Turkey is a big country with a very big population, with a very important economy, and we cannot ignore its presence. What we hope is that Turkey's policies serve this goal of ours. Please allow me to say that Greece is the only country, I repeat, the only country that still clearly favors Turkey's candidacy to the European Union. Of course, upon the conditionality. Human rights, rights of women, etc., institution building, etc. But in principle, we would like Turkey in, not out. The question is, does Turkey's policies serve this goal or not? And let me give you two examples. Casus belli. Turkey is the only country in the world, I repeat, the only country in the world that have issued a threat of war against another country, Greece, if Greece exercises its lawful rights according to international law of the sea and extends territorial waters in the Aegean to 12 miles. How could that happen in the 21st century? B, delimits sea zones with the so-called government of Libya against international law, ignoring that islands have all rights as the mainland. To give you an example, is as if Greece would be limiting the central Mediterranean with Tunisia, ignoring the presence of Sicily. So the lines go over Sicily, as the lines there go over Crete. So Turkey has to understand that it has to function within the rules-based order. And then, of course, Turkey will become an integral part of the security arrangement of this region. On Iran and the European Union. Iran, as we all know here, regardless of from which angle we see this, is a very difficult case. You know that the European Union, I'm not speaking for Greece, I'm speaking for the European Union. The European Union was very positive for the JCPOA, and it tried again to reignite the discussions on the JCPOA, as did the government of the United States. And huge effort was there, but unfortunately, up to now, it didn't work out. And I have to say, now, as the Greek foreign minister, that Iran plays many times as the disruptor. That is what it is. Not just on the JCPOA, not just on the nuclear weapons, on many fronts. So, again, we need a clear policy towards Iran that can show to Iran that Iran has much to gain by becoming a normal actor in the international affairs.
Thank you very much. Well, two announcements. First of all,